So welcome back to the Living Jewish Daily Kitzur Shir. We are now learning about benching together. So whether you remember or you don't, sometime back we discussed all the laws of washing and eating and getting ready to bench. But now we're up to the actual benching, and we are going to discuss benching together, which is a whole added special dimension when it comes to benching. So just to see where we're up to in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Living Jewish at Large, we're working our way through the day. We started the day with getting dressed and saying Modeh Ani. We davened, we learned, we behaved ourselves, we prepared the food that we wanted to eat, and now we've eaten. And so now we are benching. Coming up next on the list will be forbidden foods. We spoke a little bit about that. We'll speak some more about that. And then we'll speak about forbidden wines. And that will take us to the end of the process of eating. And then we'll discuss some other additional brachos. So let's take a look at benching together. Okay, here we are. So 3 men, and we'll discuss women as well. We'll get there. Who have eaten together should recite Birkas Hamazon with Zimun. Zimun means invitation, which really means that, well, there are 2 separate points over here. There's one point which is to invite everybody to bench together. And there's a second point, which is to do it over a cup of wine. Now, so to make it more honorable, when we thank Hashem, we should do it in the most glorious way possible. So there's an idea that there's a leader that leads the benching, and he invites everybody else to join in, which is what we usually do at the end of the Shabbos meal. And then if there are 3 men present, and then he holds up a cup of wine, and he thanks Hashem for the food that he has eaten over the cup of wine. And then after benching, he drinks from that wine and gives everybody else to drink from the wine, because this is called special Kais Shel Bracha, the wine of a blessing. In fact, in Hasidic circles, Hasidim can wait for hours in order to have a little sip of the Kais Shel Bracha, the wine that was used for benching of the Rebbe, which is special wine which has lots of brachas in it. So this is what we're speaking about over here. Now, he does say that you should do it over a cup of wine. Practically speaking, nowadays, yeah, it is a good thing to do it over a cup of wine. For some reason, it's not done so much with 3 people. I can't say whether it's for good reason or it's not for good reason, but at least if you're going to have 10 people together, if you have 10 men in the room and you're all benching together, then it would certainly be most appropriate to do it over a cup of wine. But even 3 people really ideally should be done over a cup of wine, although I haven't seen it being done that way all that much. Now, he does mention that if there's no wine available, then you can also bench over other Chemer HaMedina, which would be like the drink of the states, beer, whiskey, if they're common beverages of the locality. However, just to clarify, this is specifically if there are no grapevines in the area, which doesn't really exist today, meaning if you have no access to grape juice. I guess if you've just gone off on to the game reserve and you brought your kosher food with you and there's no kosher wine accessible, so maybe then you would be able to bench over a cup of whiskey. It's debatable, but I guess it doesn't really
also
work.
Not 10 people, so it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, if it's 10 people, even less than 10 people, the idea does exist to bench over a cup of wine.
Kruger Park.
In the Kruger. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so he says if wine is not available, other beverages can be used. But as I say, some say that we got to use wine and other stuff, or grape juice. Whenever we speak about wine, halachically, grape juice is also considered wine. So the same would go for grape juice. Some people say that even if one person is benching by himself, he should do so over a cup of wine. He should bench holding a cup of wine in his hands. And just when you think you are done, you've got more to drink. However, this isn't not the standard practice. He says practically, if you want to follow that opinion, don't actually hold it in your hand, maybe leave it on the table. But between me and you, if you're by yourself, then you could leave the cup of wine out. You could have the cup of wine during the meal, but I don't know if you would bench over the cup of wine. Okay, the cup is pulled first, and then the hands are washed. So a little month or so back, we spoke about mayim achronim, that before we bench, we should wash our fingertips. We gave 2 reasons for that. One reason was because our hands may have been dirty and we're about to talk to Hashem, so we want to reach a higher level of cleanliness. Another reason was because there was sodomite salt, and if people touched their eyes, it would poison them. Either way, practically, before we bench, usually they pass around the cup with a little bit of water and we pour it over the fingertips. So he says that the benching, which we're speaking about now, over a cup of wine, would take place after you've already done mayim achronim, after you've already washed your hands. Oh, actually, first you fill the cup, and then you wash your hands, and then it's ready to bench. And now to halacha number 3. Okay, so really in halacha number 3 and 4, the next 2 halachas, 3 and 4, we're going to speak about the halachas of benching over a cup of wine, but the same thing would apply to making kiddush or havdalah. So we're going to take a moment to speak about how we could make this event as honorable an occasion as possible. So listen up, we're going to have a whole lot of steps in place that we can do when we do bench or when we do make kiddush, anytime that we use wine. I mean, let's talk about wine for a moment. You know, people in intoxication can lead to all sorts of negative places, but that's because the greater the power of good is the power of to do evil. There's this battle in this world. Hashem's given us tremendous power. It can either be used in a positive direction or in a negative direction, and the wine is no exception. And certainly the fact that wine can be used negatively is indicative of how it has a tremendous positive energy. And that's why wine has a big role in Judaism. We make kiddush and we make havdalah. A wedding is done over a cup of wine. And now we see that benching is done over a cup of wine as well. And we're going to make this as an auspicious and honorable experience as possible. So here we're going to go through about 10 different points to bear in mind when making kiddush or havdalah or benching over a cup of wine, how to make that cup of wine as glorious and auspicious as possible. Let's take a look. So firstly, the wine itself, if somebody already drank from that wine which was in that cup, then that makes it called pogum. It's considered blemished. So if you have a little sneaky kid that gets his way into the kitchen and he sees a bottle of grape juice, and which child doesn't love grape juice? And so he takes the bottle and he drinks a little bit. Hopefully it's grape juice and it's not anything else with alcohol content. So the moment that child has taken that bottle of grape juice and he has drinking from that grape juice a little bit, he has made that grape juice what is called pogum, defiled. At that point, that since a person is already drinking from that wine or that grape juice, it makes it considered defiled. It wouldn't be able to be used for an honorable event. In fact, the Gemara discusses even if you had a huge barrel of grape juice or wine with hundreds of liters, were somebody to put their mouth on the barrel and to take a sip, the entire barrel is no longer suitable for kiddush. But don't worry, there is a solution. If you take other wine or grape juice and you add it to the wine that was defiled or contaminated, then you are that makes the wine suitable once again. So that's what we're going to speak about over here. If your child did sneak his way into the fridge and have a sip from that bottle of grape juice, and certainly he'll need to have a lesson or two about what's considered mannerable, but it happened. So what you would do is you would actually pour from another bottle of wine or grape juice that had not been touched into that bottle, and by adding some other wine or grape juice that hadn't been touched into the bottle or cup that was touched, that makes that cup once again suitable to be used for Kiddush or for Havdalah or for benching. Now, if you're about to bench, and as you're about to bench, your child goes and he takes a little sip. Again, he needs some, he might need a lesson or two in manners, but he did that. So then you wouldn't just add a little bit more wine. What you would want to do is you would actually pour this defiled wine back into a pitcher or into a bottle, and then pour it again for the purpose of the mitzvah once you've added other wine to it. So here, another practical example of this is if you are, like now in COVID times, if you're home alone, just with your own family, and you fill up the cup, as we'll see in a moment, we want this to be honorable, so we're going to say it on a very full cup. We've got to go no short of the very top. In fact, some have the custom to let it even overflow to show that the bracha should overflow. This custom is mentioned with regards to Havdalah in the Shulchan Aruch. But either way, you'll fill up your cup right to the top, but you don't have to drink the entire thing. As long as you have drinking a majority of the cup, and that is more than a revius, which is somewhere between 86 and 100 ml, then the remaining wine doesn't need to be wasted. So what you could do is you could actually use that wine for next Shabbos. The problem is that wine has been contaminated. It's become pogum because you've drinking from it. So what you would do is you would add some more grape juice to the cup. This is what I do lately every Shabbos. When I'm finished making Kiddush and I have some extra, I'll add, after drinking from the cup, I'll add some fresh wine to the cup. And then I'll pour it back into a designated bottle, which I know is just being used for the family. And then pour the following Friday night into use that very same wine, some of that very same wine for Kiddush the following week. So he's saying 2 points over here. The wine shouldn't be contaminated, shouldn't be pogum, and it should be poured into the cup for the purpose of the mitzvah. So if it was contaminated, you would actually pour it back into a pitcher or into a bottle, add some fresh wine, and then pour it again back into your becher, into your dish, so that you could use it for the purpose of the mitzvah. So what have we said so far? We've said it should be over a cup of wine that has not been blemished, and it should be filled up for the sake of the mitzvah. Here are a number of additional pointers. Now the cup, let's talk about the cup, the royal goblet. The cup should be whole, for starters. Even if the base is broken, which you're not actually drinking from, so if you have one of those bechas that actually sit on a stand, and just the stand at the bottom has become wobbly or it's cracked, then that cup is not suitable for making the bracha. As we said, we want this to be as auspicious and honorable as possible. And just as you wouldn't be comfortable using that cup under the chuppah by your child's wedding or by your wedding or by any other auspicious event with maybe the king or queen of England, so too when we talk to Hashem, we want to make sure that the wine is intact and that the cup is intact. Even the slightest notch on the rim of the cup or a crack in the cup disqualifies it. So if you don't want your Kiddush cup to be mishandled, aside from it depreciating in value, it may actually no longer be fit for this auspicious occasion of making Kiddush or of benching. Another point is that the cup should be rinsed from the inside and washed from the outside. So rinsed more thoroughly on the inside as well as on the outside. If no water is available, then you could wipe it clean. We mentioned this by Kiddush, and I'll say as well again, although our dishes would be washed after Shabbos, by the time a week goes by and it's the following Friday night, there is a possibility of there being some level of dust, or there is, hopefully not in our homes, a possibility that the wine wasn't rinsed out as thoroughly as it could have, and perhaps it is still somewhat sticky. Either way, as part of the honor, the specialty of the occasion of making Kiddush or making Havdalah or benching, you should actually, before you make Kiddush or Havdalah or bench, take your special goblets, take your special becher, and give it a wash inside out. If you don't have any water around, take a wipe or a serviette, a napkin, and wipe it down. That is the next step in the process of using your kais shel bracha, your cup of blessing. Okay, as we said, it should be poured into the cup for the purpose of making the bracha. The cup should be full all the way to the top. The one who leads the benching, if he's being handed the cup, should he accept it in both hands? Something that he really cherished. He's taking it like the cup. I don't know if I think in other areas there's the famous cup that everybody's trying to win, and when that team does win their cup, they take it in with both hands. They don't just kind of like grab it because this is something precious. Well, maybe that comes from the way it is in the Torah. When we accept that cup that we are about to make the brachos over, we accept it with two hands, and then we to show affection and showing that you're longing to accept it with all one's might. I mean, it's quite amazing, this idea of games and sports where everybody is longing for that cup. And so we see where it comes from, because there's an idea in Torah of longing, of being really excited about this kaishal bracha, this cup of bracha, of blessings. As we have in the verse, lift up your hands to the sanctuary and bless Hashem. Hands in the plural. So you actually accept the cup if someone's passing it to you in two hands, and then you would take away your left hand and hold it in your stronger, dominant right hand if you're a righty, so that it doesn't look like it's a burden. So that we accept it lovingly with two hands, but then we don't want to make it feel like it's getting heavy, that we need two hands. So we hold it proudly in our right hand. We look at the cup so that we don't become distracted, unless obviously you're looking inside the actual sitters so that you know what you need to say. That's also kind of important. Hold it about a tefach, which is a hand's breadth above the ground. So you actually lift it up as if the table's right here. You don't want to kind of just be begrudgingly hold it, but rather you lift up your hand. And as the verse says, the cup of deliverance I will raise, and upon the name Hashem I will call. A left-handed person would use his dominant hand, his right hand, which would be the left hand. And finally, before we bench, we should remove any empty dishes. So we should actually clear the table before benching, with the exception of bread, because we've learned previously that when we bench and there is still extra bread on the table, then that is an added way to give added praise to Hashem, that He has blessed us in abundance. So all the food and empty dishes should be removed from the table before benching. So we make this as honorable as possible, with the exception of bread. So here's a little bit of a way of embellishing your benching. Just if you thought you're kind of at the end of the meal and you might just kind of catch it under your breath on your way out to the next activity, it's time to push on the brakes and grace yourself for the grace after meal, an auspicious and special time of Thanksgiving to Hashem. Thank you so much for joining.